Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and if you're a first time viewer, welcome. This is a 3-channel Cali. So if you've been following the channel, you would have seen this amp a few times. It's normally done as a 2-channel gain up Marshall, right? So 2 master volumes through the same preamp, giving you a few different options for solo boost or different gain structures per master. This one, however, we've added a clean channel, right? And it's a pretty good example of the kind of mods that you can do using some of the auxiliary PCBs that we have available. So this is based on the Cali PCB that is available for DIY builders to build your own one of these. And what I've added is a couple of my smaller boards that are able to be used to kind of extend the functionality, right? So we're using one of the auxiliary relay boards to add the extra clean channel, so giving it a genuine kind of 3-channel amp. It's also MIDI controllable, right? So we're using our MIDI board here to make all of the 3 channels able to be recalled using program change messages or control change messages from MIDI. And just in that little playthrough in the beginning of the clip, I was moving between the clean channel to the first of the gains, and to the 3rd gain channel, which I've got set up in a kind of a lead mode. Yeah, this amp has been built for a guy in Perth, so he actually requested the addition of a clean channel. So I had to think about that for a bit. How would I add a clean channel to an existing 2-channel amp? What we're going to do in the clip today is really have a look at that, right? So rather than kind of doing a review of the Cali, you've seen the Cali, you've heard the Cali on the channel before. I'm going to focus in on using relays to provide some options within an amp. So you might have a single channel Marshall amp, maybe one of the reissues, 2203 reissue or something like that, or a clone, and you can get a killer overdriven sound out of it, but you want to add a clean channel to it. Well, maybe some of the information and techniques that I'm about to show you will come in useful. We'll also have a look at what I'm doing with the MIDI board here. What's the interesting addition that the customer in Perth wanted was the ability to control outboard gear. So by sending a MIDI signal into the amp, which I'm doing here for the purposes of this demonstration from my Axe-Fx 3, I'm running MIDI out to the MIDI in of my Cali amp here, and what we've done for the customer here is to provide a TRS jack output that's controlled by the MIDI board that's in the amp. And what that allows us to do is control using program change presets or control change messages the switching status of that TRS jack to switch an external piece of gear. In this case, he wants to switch his Fryette PS100 power station. I'll demonstrate what it's capable of by switching my Sir PT15 amp. Alright, so just to demonstrate the TRS output of the Headfirst Cali that I was talking about. So we've got a MIDI controller in the amp, right? We've got MIDI in coming into the amp. The MIDI chip can store and recall presets by way of MIDI program control messages or change control messages to toggle individual settings. So, as I said, the customer wanted the ability to control a bit of outboard gear. So just to kind of test it and to demonstrate what this is capable of, what I've done is I've hooked up the Sir PT15, which is a 3-channel amp, and the 3 channels, green, blue and red, are controllable with a TRS foot switch, right? A kind of pretty regular thing you see in an amp. So what I've done, I've set up 3 scenes on my Axe-Fx here. Each scene is sending MIDI preset recall to the Headfirst MIDI in, which is in turn controlling the PT15. So let me just scroll through them right on my foot controller here. Right. So you can see instantaneous switching. So pretty cool feature. Obviously you wouldn't necessarily do this for, with 2 amps. I mean, you could, right, if you were running a stereo rig with 2 amps or something like that. But if you had a piece of outboard gear that you needed to control via MIDI, it's a pretty cool idea. Certainly the first time I've added that to an amp, but I can see that being quite useful. Alright, so just to go through how I added this clean channel, I'm just going to use this layout diagram. Now this layout diagram I have marked up and added the clean channel from a pretty fantastic layout that Brian did. And Brian is from our Headfirst DIY builders group. So if you're contemplating or you are building with one of our Headfirst PCBs, or perhaps you're doing one of the mods that I've posted for various Marshall amps, everything from vintage 2203, 2204s all the way through to the DSL and the Origins. There's nearly 600 guys in that group now that are there to help. Most of them have built or have modded with these PCBs, or have used my videos to do mods in their own Marshalls. So Brian's one of the guys on the group there, and he took a layout for the Cali that I had done, and he made it better. Right, so thank you, Brian. So I've taken Brian's file here and I have added the detail for the simple clean channel. I call it a simple clean because it's a simple clean, right? You will not find a more simple clean than this. It's simply taking your guitar signal from the first gain stage here, right, just V1A, taking it through the clean volume pot with a 3-way bright switch here, through this relay, and then via the effects loop into the phase inverter, right? So the clean channel, I call it a simple clean, is because it's bypassing all of the tone stack, i.e. the treble, middle, bass pots that are used by the gain channel in this amp, right? So one gain stage bypasses the whole preamp and straight to the phase inverter. It's the simplest clean channel you could possibly have. And for the Cali, because it's a pre-tone stack master with José clipping diodes, it's the way to do it, right? If you weren't using the clipping diodes, you could do the simple clean channel like this and have it come back into the amp by the relay at the entry to the tone stack. But for this amp, this is the way to do it, right? So let's talk about how it happens. Here's your guitar signal, right? Plug your guitar in here. Here's the grid of the first gain stage. This is the cathode, this is the plate. So the signal from the plate is going off and is used, in the Cali through the gain, the gain channel or gain channels. But I'm also tapping off this 22 nanofarad coupling cap here for the clean channel, and you can see it taps off the pin and comes straight off into the clean volume, and it's a 3-way bright. Alright, so middle position, no bright, and I've got 100 and a 220 picofarad respectively. In the clean channel demo at the beginning of the clip, I was playing with it in the 220 picofarad position. And from the wiper of the clean volume, here we go across to this relay. Now let's talk about relays for a second, right? What is a relay? It's a switch that's activated remotely by energizing a relay coil. And by energizing, what I mean is you're sending a DC signal or a DC current through it. And when you send that DC signal through the coil, it causes the switch to activate. This is a double pole, double throw relay, right? Now you can see I'm only using one side of it. This side here is not actually used. So, I could do this mod with a single pole double throw relay, but my auxiliary boards that I use, and you can see them in the photos that I've posted in this clip, they're all set up for double pole double throw, right? So I just use that. I'm only using one side of it. Now you can see there's 8 pins on these double pole double throw relays. So right, let's talk about them. 3 of them are grouped together, and then there's a space, and then there's this one here, right? And the same on the other side. So starting on this side, this is the coil. Now what you need to do to activate a relay or to work with a relay is you've got to put a DC voltage on one side, in this case 12 volts, and I'm using a 12 volt relay. And then the other side of it, you set it to ground, right? You don't set it to ground when you want the coil not to be activated, and then you set it to ground, and that activates the coil, which makes the relay switch. And the way that we set it to ground is via the foot switch, right? Or when there's no jack plugged into here, this jack here means that these terminals here will be connected. It's a cliff switching jack, right? So when there's no jack, no 1/4 inch jack plugged in, these 2 terminals here are connected. If there's nothing plugged in, then the channel switch on the front of the amp is active, or available, and when you switch it, it'll get set to ground. So as soon as you ground this side of the coil, the relay will activate. Now what do I mean by activate? Well, it'll switch. So when there's no current going through the relay coil, this is the common terminal here, right? This is the common. It's the same on both sides, common. And when there's no current going through the coil, these 2 terminals here are connected, right? So the switch, if you like, right, is one way, and it's connected here. When I ground the side of the coil and the relay activates and it flicks, then the common terminal will be connected to this point, and this one here will be connected to nothing, right? So one way it's here connected, and the other way it's here to here, right? So what's coming off the treble wiper here is the signal from the gain channels of the Cali, right? And what's coming off this one here is our clean channel. All right, so I've got my clean channel here, I've got my gain channel here, and here's my common terminal. And from the common, it's coming out, and you follow this, right? And what it's actually doing here is it's going through the effects loop. But from the effects loop back in, it then comes back to the board and into the phase inverter of the amp, right? So really simply, clean channel, gain channel, right? We're flicking between the 2, and then from there they go into the phase inverter of the power amp, right? You can see on the other side of this relay, I'm not using anything. Now, you could use this other side of the relay to perhaps toggle LEDs. So if you had LEDs on the front of your amp and you wanted to activate them and have them light up, you could do that. Now, the backbone of the amp is obviously our José Cali PCB here, right, which you can see installed in the amp here. All the Calis that I have made and sold myself are based on this board, and this board is obviously available for purchase in our online store for you to build your own one of these, right? It is a 2-master single channel amp, right? So it's got a single channel preamp, but it has foot switchable master and solo volume levels, kind of like, I guess, the Philx amp is like that. But the inspiration for this was actually the Cameron CCV, the way that's set up. And on each of the masters here, you can choose between various clipping options, right? Xena, transistor, or no clipping, and you can see it's repeated here for the other channel. So that's all kind of standard, right? let's talk about the additions. The clean channel. It has a genuine, simple, clean channel. It taps off this capacitor here, so 22 nanofarad coupling cap, which is just coming straight off the plate of the first gain stage, right? And that is running over here to the clean volume, which also has a 3-way bright switch, no bright, and then 100 and 220 picofarad bright cap on here. The output of this pot runs to this relay board, which is one of my auxiliary relay PCBs. It's mounted into the wall of the chassis. I'll take some photos of that so you can see it in more detail, but that first relay there is taking the input from this simple clean, and for the gain setup, which is our 2 different masters here, once it's made its way through the tone stack, it comes out of the treble wiper here, and that's also leading to this relay, and the relay then switches between either the simple clean and or the regular gain setup on the board. The output of the relay then moves across to the effects loop, and from the effects loop output to the phase inverter input, right? So there's our clean channel there. On this wall of the chassis is my MIDI board, right? The MIDI PCB with firmware that I wrote, running on an 80 mega chip here. Its purpose of this MIDI board is to be able to accept instructions via a MIDI IM 5-pin DIN plug by way of program change or control change messages, which will then control the relay switching. Okay, so this relay, and the 2 blue relays. I'll talk about the two blue relays in a second. But effectively, between this relay and this relay, we are controlling the 3-channel setup of this custom amp. The blue relays were added to switch this TRS jack here, so he can store presets or run control change messages to the MIDI input of this amp. The controller will interpret those, and it can toggle these relays, which in turn will activate or ground this TRS output here. So guys, it's a pretty simple mod, right? And hopefully the video has been helpful in terms of providing some more detail or insights about how relays work and how to use them within an amp to provide an extra option like this, where we've added a simple clean channel. If you're a first-time viewer to the channel, please do subscribe. This channel is all about learning about how amps work, how to mod them, and how to build them from scratch, particularly using the PCBs that we have, which will give you an enormous head start. Do subscribe, ring the bell, you'll be notified for new content, and I'll see you next time.